Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to this week's Living Torah. And before we get into Scripture, I do have somebody sent me an email, and I asked him if I could just respond to it here on the video. There's somebody that listens every week. Thank you so much. And it says, to the point, I have a question. If we are to go to the camps when the altar is defiled, where does one go if there are no like-minded believers where one lives? Okay. This is a whole, and this is not the only question I got like this past week. I had some different conversations with various people about this, and it's something that's on people's mind because, there's a lot going on in the world right now. Bibi Netanyahu just pulled the ultimate, saying that he wanted elections and, I'm going to close down the government. And you can't, if you've never been to Israel, you don't understand the government system over there. It's really difficult. If you've been to Israel and you've been to the Knesset and you've had it explained to you, you still don't understand the government system. I doubt if Bibi Netanyahu could explain the government system to anyone. It's strange. It is absolutely strange in a lot of ways. But Bibi pulled it off this week in that he wanted to be a little bit stronger going into whatever's going on with Iran right now. And so he said he was going to call for early elections, and then he strengthened his government, kind of kicking Kadima out of there a little bit. And then he said, no, we're not going to have early elections. And so he really came out well. That in itself is really a sign of some things that are going on, and I think that I don't know. It appears that there's some rather interesting things on the horizon right now that could cause some major changes. Let me just say it like that. Not wanting to put any fear. We're going to get into that here in the scriptures this week and next week. By the way, this is just this question just came out at a great time regarding where we're at in Matthew chapter 6. So with that, it's something that a lot of people are thinking about. If you're afraid, if you're walking in fear, well, you need to get that dealt with. But how do I answer this one? Back in the days that I was pastoring a Southern Baptist Charismatic Pentecostal Messianic Zionist church in North Florida, and was really still, though we were very much heading toward Messianic, was still very much into my pre-trib rapture teaching and theories and all of that. And it was so easy back then to read Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, and all of these, go through Bible school and they teach about the rapture and all that. And it was just so easy because all you had to do was just kind of live life and, go to church and pay your tithe and show up on time and don't smoke, drink, cuss, or go out with girls. Don't smoke, drink, chew, or go out with girls that do. And if you did all those things, then one day there was going to be a rapture bus, and the rapture bus was going to come and take you away, and 7-year party in the heavens, and then come back and the story from there. It was so easy. It's not so easy anymore, and people want to put it into kind of a nice little box. Okay, this is what's going to happen when and everything. I just don't see it like that, folks. This question, when the altar is defiled, yes, there's coming a day that the altar is defiled, okay? But then what are you going to do? I think you're going to have to listen to the Spirit. I think you're going to have to listen to His Spirit of what you're supposed to do. Does that mean that you're to go and be with some like-minded believers? Maybe so. Does that mean that you're supposed to just stay at your home with your family? Or even if it's just yourself? Maybe so. We look at the scripture, and I just looked at it again this morning in Jeremiah 51, about when we see some of these things happen, let Jerusalem come to your mind. Well, I know where Jerusalem is. I was just there. What's Babylon? Is it the city in Iraq? Is it America? Kind of looks like in a lot of ways. Is it the world system? And then let it come to your mind. Well, let Jerusalem come to your mind. Then what are you supposed to do? See, we want this box so that we got it all figured out, so that we don't have to think, and we don't have to pray, and we don't have to seek the Almighty on what we are to do individually. And that was one of the hardest things in teaching preparedness through a number of years here, is that people would always come at the end of every single, I think almost every single meeting that I would do. Well, Mike, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what you're supposed to do. I said it like this. When people would, I'm going to just take about 5 or 10 minutes here, not a lot longer, but I say it like this. When, I talk about food storage, and somebody'd come and say, how much food should I store? And I'd say, I don't know. And they'd say, but you're supposed to know. You're the teacher. And I'd say, no, here's the question. You just asked me, how much food should you store? Well, I can't tell you that because I'm not you. See, you've got to seek God about what you're supposed to do, not what I'm telling you to do. I may give you some guidelines of what you're to, if you're going to go in this direction, here's some guidelines of what to do. This is this is the economical way, and this is the way that's going to work well, and this is going to pan out for you better. We do a lot of stupid things. People at Y2K bought 100 pounds of grain, didn't have a grinder, and didn't know how to use one. Well, that's not going to go over too well, is it? So I was giving guidelines, but then I'd tell people, you need to seek Him. You need to seek the Almighty of what you're supposed to do. And He may tell you to go out and buy 2 jars of peanut butter. And, you say, well, I've got some extra cash. No, buy 2 jars. That's all you're to do. If you buy 3, you're disobedient. He may tell you to store enough food for 10 people for a year. You say, I don't have any money. He didn't tell you to charge your charge cards up, to charge that up. He didn't say to mortgage your house. He said to do this. Okay, let Him provide and how to do it. But though we are a community of individuals. And if each one of us has everything today in a nice, neat little package, all wrapped up with a bow on top, where's faith in that? You say, I'm talking about faith and storing food or storing water or something. It's the same coin, just a different side. See, if we want to say that we shouldn't do anything, and this is where we're going to get into in the scriptures probably in next week, I believe. But if we're going to say, well, we shouldn't, if doing anything is a lack of faith, well, then Joseph was a man that didn't have any faith. Solomon spoke of the ant that stored and didn't have any faith. Look at the Proverbs 31 woman who went and she prepared for her family. She's now a woman of lack of faith. The little boy that brought the loaves and fish, his mama was a woman of no faith. No, we've got to get out of this concept that there's going to be, we got to get out of, we may have left the pre-tribulation rapture behind, but I think some of the mindset came forward. They were still trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going to happen. You say, well, you're not much of a teacher. No, well, that's probably about the best statement you can come up with anyway. But besides that aspect of it, I see that in this book and in history, we have, got my camera a little high today, we have 6,000 years of history that God has called people to live by faith. And we think that somehow He's going to change for us. That all of a sudden He's going to, I know that the Scripture says, I will do nothing unless I tell my prophets. Well, is it that He's telling His prophets the details? Or is He giving them clues? Go back to Noah, a man that had no faith, because he should have just prayed against the rain and, that would have been it, right? I'm being very facetious there. Noah was given what details he needed. And he was given clues about what other things, because he wasn't told what rain was exactly. He wasn't told exactly how things were going to happen. He was told what his part in it was going to be and what he needed to do. And so, back to the question, where does one go if there are no like-minded believers? Well, you're probably just going to have to trust Him to tell you. Maybe in that day you're going to find that 3 houses down there's a group of like-minded believers. You've heard me say, you'll perform like you train. And if you're seeking Him today, you're seeking His will, His word, you're seeking His Spirit, you're seeking His voice in your life today. He's training you today to hear in the small things. I have a feeling that in that day, when it's a little bit bigger, you're going to perform like you train. So, if you're listening today, and you're learning today how to listen, we don't need to be as concerned about the details for the future. We just need to be focusing on Him. Okay? Well, with that, let's go to the Scriptures. And we're going to go to Matthew chapter 6. It's going to take us, probably a couple weeks. We'll be through Matthew chapter 6. And, who knows, by Sukkot, we may be even up to, Matthew 10 or 12. You never know. Okay, verse 19. Oh, by the way, let's go back to last week just briefly. I didn't really hit this when you fast. Scripture and Yeshua right here just kind of takes it for granted that you're going to fast. That there's going to be prayer and there's going to be times of fasting in your life. There's going to be some things that you need to mix prayer and fasting with. And this is not just for Yom Kippur. You're going through a difficult time. Maybe it's a time to put some fasting in there. But do it in such a way that it is unto the Father, not for everybody else. Give an example. I was pastoring this church years ago, and a number of us did a 40-day fast. It was just with bread. We ate Ezekiel bread. I love Ezekiel. I used to love Ezekiel bread. It's still today. It's like because that's what I lived on for 40 days, and we didn't make it a big deal. But the Almighty was moving in our congregation, and we were like the black sheep of the family of all the Baptist churches in our area. And so we did this fast, and nobody really cared, and nobody, as far as the community and the county, nobody, it's just them and they're doing something. Then there was another church that was kind of they were the big dog on the block, and the pastor decided to do a fast, and it became county-wide news. Why are you doing what you're doing? Back to the heart of the issue. Why are you doing what you do? Is it to seek Him, or is it to seek other people? And that's where the context of this goes right on into verse 19. Do not store up for yourselves wealth here on earth, where moths and rust destroy and burglars break in and steal. Instead, store up for yourselves wealth in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and burglars do not break in and steal. You never had they don't have any security systems in the heavens. Now, these verses right here have been used, were used in, I think it was about the 5th, I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was the Gnostics, and you have to get some of these guys that remember all that. Eddie remembers all that stuff. I can't remember it all. But they came up with this basic theology, this basic doctrine, that everything of the earth was bad and everything of the heaven was good. And if we just made it through on this earth long enough, we lived long enough, that we were going to escape the bad of this earth, and we were all going to go to heaven. I'll fly away, O glory. And then we find out after our pre-tribulation rapture bus has wrecked, that not only is there not going to be a rapture, but we're going to end up spending the millennium and beyond upon earth. Wait a minute. Maybe some people got this thing wrong. Maybe the earth is not bad inherently. Maybe it's what man has done to this earth. What man has done through sin. And I'm not talking about global warming and your SUV here. It's what man has done through sin. And that's why things are breaking down today, because the earth is groaning. The earth is groaning for the Torah to be restored, because that's what's been gone for the vast majority of 6,000 years upon this earth, is the tree of life. There's the tree of life, which was the Torah, which man said no to, and went his own way with good and evil. And since that time, the earth has been groaning and literally has been breaking down, and is today right in front of us, breaking down more and more, society-wise and in a natural sense also. So he says in the midst of this, so that's to kind of give you an idea of where this scripture has gone. Okay, I totally reject that kind of teaching that, of what I just said. What he's talking about here is how you live your life upon this earth. Store up treasures back to his kingdom. Store up treasures that are worthy of his kingdom, that are worthy of his rule, that are in line with his desires. You can go right back to the prayer. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Store up in your life. Invest your life in something that he would be proud of, instead of something that the world would be proud of. Investments. And of course, the first thing that somebody says is, okay, you're going to talk about money. No, that's number 3 on the list, okay? The first thing that I believe that we should be investing in is people. Now, you probably never heard somebody start this verse. Store up yourself wealth here on earth. How do we do that? We do that through investing our lives in people. You can invest in money. You can have all these, the CDs and the 401ks and the stock markets and all those things, and it goes up and down. Silver and gold, price goes up, price goes down. And if that's all you're investing in, well, guess what? You're going to die one day. And when you die, all that you've invested in, all that you've done, all those bank accounts, your children are probably going to spend that all in about 1 year or less, is what I've heard some experts say, that they'll spend it all. It'll all be gone. You invest in that big car, that beautiful car, that nice shiny car, and you go to a Walmart parking lot. So much for the nice shiny, no dents, huh? Because somebody runs a cart right in the side of it. Somebody spills something on a seat. Moths and rust, and the burglars are breaking in and stealing because we didn't put our treasures into the right area. Where should we be investing? First of all, I believe we should invest in people. You should invest in your family. There's nothing more, I don't think, in this world than investing in your family. Spending time with your family, getting involved in just in their life and letting them be involved in your life. Though that's something that will go on forever. I can tell you stories. You can tell me stories of people in your life that invested in you. Oh, I could come up with so many of them right now. Relatives, friends, people at churches I used to go to, my Boy Scout leader, various ones that invested their time in me. And many of those people now are dead, but the investment continues to live on and will continue as long as I continue to invest the right way into my family, into my children, and into people like some of you. It's responding to an email is investing in people. Returning a phone call is investing in people. Returning an email, just picking up the phone sometimes and telling a person, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. And it's investing in people. That type of investment, wow, that is just nothing like it, okay? Because when you invest in people, the rust does not destroy that. The burglars don't break in and steal. The moths don't get it. I know that relationships go sour, but I'm going to take my chances with that one, because I've seen in some relationships that when you invest and you invest the right way, that yes, things happen, but sometimes it turns back around the other way, and the investment becomes even more. Number 2, your own driving force. Investing our time, our energy. What is it that drives us? Is it, I guess probably the best way to teach this is through an illustration. And it comes from some people that many of you are familiar with. I mention them probably all the time. Moshe and Dov Kempinski at To HaShem. I love to hear Moshe talk his story about how, 25 years ago, Moshe and Dov had moved back to Israel from Canada, and they opened a store in the old city called To HaShem. And here's the purpose that they opened that. The reason they opened that store, they say, is this, and I sure do believe it. The store was about sanctifying the name of God. It wasn't about pronouncing it right, okay? It was about sanctifying it, calling His name holy. And so they began this store, and everything in the store was about Him, was about His name. Everything in the store had a scriptural basis. There was no, you don't go to Moshe's shop and buy trinkets. Okay, somebody, when I was there the last time, we've been into one of the stores and we bought some things, and it was like mezuzahs and and stuff like that. And somebody said, "Well, yeah, you bought those trinkets." And I turned and said, "I don't believe the things of God are trinkets." Okay, I take that kind of personal. You don't find trinkets in Moshe's shop. Everything in Dov's shop, everything there is about sanctifying the name of Elohim. And so they started this store 25 years ago, and through some very difficult times, through the wars, the intifadas, they're still there. And they have become a driving force today for the reuniting of this family, of bringing people together, Jew and Christian together in that store. Now, I believe that their success, they have been able to provide for their families through that store. And I believe that their success has been that they began it with the driving force of sanctifying His name, not their name. They did not begin that store with the idea of, okay, Dove, we need something to provide for our families. Let's start this. Let's open a shop to make money. Do you really think that 25 years later they would be where they are? I don't. Ask yourself, when you wake up in the morning, what's the driving force of your life? Is it to sanctify His name? To glorify His name? You know, as we've been counting the Omer, we're on day 32 today, I believe it is. My prayer every morning and many times in the evening as we eat, as we have our meal, is that through the day that His name would be glorified. I think that's investing in something. I think that's investing in a place that moths cannot destroy that. They cannot eat that up. Rust cannot destroy that. And thieves sure can't break in and steal what you have done in your life to sanctify His name. Yes, the scripture is clear when we continue to read that He is talking about money. For where your wallet is, where your checkbook is, where your debit card is, shows a lot about what your priorities. It shows about the driving force in your life. It shows in where your investments are. If you open your checkbook, if you just kind of laid your bank statements out in front of someone, it doesn't take but just a moment to really find out where your heart is. Now, maybe maybe you've been blessed and you own a few things in life. There's nothing wrong with the things. It's what you do with it. If your yard is full of all the toys, if your gun cabinet is full, is full to overflowing, and what would the ladies say? I don't know. Who knows? Got myself in a hole right there. But if it's not, I believe that the Almighty desires to bless us, but He desires to bless us, back to Genesis chapter 12, so that we can be a blessing. If you go out and you buy if I go somewhere here, I'm trying not to get myself in trouble here. Let's say that you buy a new sailboat. Okay, I think I'm safe on that one. If you buy a new sailboat and you buy it just so that you can go and sail around the world, and you can get your name in the Guinness Book of World Records, and you can have your name as one of the people that has sailed around the world, and it's going to be a trip just for you, and you're going to document this, and you're going to YouTube it, and you're going to post it on all these things, you're going to Facebook and Twitter it and all these things, and it's all about you. As opposed to, I know some people, let me go back to an actual illustration. It was a man a number of years ago. He had a neighbor that was into woodworking. This neighbor, and this is in our Christian days, okay, that's okay. And this guy was into woodworking. And so he, this neighbor was not saved, okay, didn't go to church or anything. And this man just said, I just really want to invest myself in this man's life. I would like to see this man come to Messiah. And so he had no desire of anything about woodworking. But he went over and he started to help this guy in his woodworking. And he said, I'd like to buy some things too. Could you help me and set up my garage? And could you come over and maybe work with me? And so it became this kind of a thing between them, and they built some relationship. And the ending story is, yes, the guy ended up coming to Messiah through that. What was he doing? Some people would say, well, you don't have time for that. You just go to the store and buy things, and why are you wasting your time? He wasn't putting himself in the wood. He wasn't investing in the wood or the cabinets or things like that. He was investing in his neighbor. That's what this is talking about. Now, so there's nothing wrong with the stuff. It's how we use it. It's what we use it for. Are we using something to glorify His name? To invest in people? Or is life about us? Is it all about us? You know, we have here, we're doing a lot of stuff as far as gardening goes. And my driving force, besides the fact is I can't stand to pay $6 for a watermelon that doesn't have any taste, and $2 for a tomato that's flavorless. My driving force is to be able to help others possibly, and help them in kind of making it through if things do go south, or it's what you do. Why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, and that of course leads us, when it comes to stuff, we got to talk a little bit about money. The scripture is very clear about giving. Now I've heard all the excuses. There's no Levites, there's no this, there's no that. I had somebody that said, well, when I start growing corn, then I'll tithe on corn, because that's what tithing is all about, is corn. I've heard every excuse, most of them 4, 5 to 10 times. They're all an excuse. It's peanut butter, as we talked about. I talk about peanut butter a lot, don't I? It's all excuses. All right. The Word talks about giving, and where your heart is, your heart and your wallet, your checkbook, they're tied together. And folks, I can say it and I'll get somebody mad at me, and that's okay. If you're not tithing, you need to look at these scriptures, because we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in just a moment, of where you actually are. If you can open your wallet, your checkbook, and there's not giving there, I have, and other ministries do, and this is not just commercial for us. I have people that have watched us, have watched this face now, crazy folks, for 6, 7, 8, 8 years now, and have never given a dime. You've never sent, you listen to this teacher or that teacher, and you've gone to a conference and you come to a table and they've got, CDs. When I do a teaching, or Brad or Rico or any of these guys, folks, that's investing our time. That's investing who we are into that. And I've had people, can you give me one? And it's so cheap. It's not they can't afford it, because somebody comes to a conference I'm doing, and a number of you know this, and somebody can't afford something, and I think you're actually truthful with me, you can have it. I never say no to something. It's not about money. This what I'm saying is not about money. But there are people that have listened to me, and I've invested my time, my study, myself into you, for some of you for maybe up to 8 years. You've never given a dime. I think you ought to ask yourself, where is your heart? Where's your treasures? Okay, now let's go on with this. It says, for where your wealth is, there is where your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if you have a good eye, that is, if you are generous, your whole body will be full of light. But if you have an evil eye, if you are stingy, your whole body will be full of darkness. This, by the way, this verse right here that I just read proves that this book was written in Hebrew, because there is no Greek idiom that comes along with this one. This is speaking of an actual Hebrew idiom of the eye. We've heard. You can go on the internet and you can Google this. The old idiom: the eyes are the windows to the soul. It's said that, you can look in a person's eye. Look me in the eye. If I look at you in the eye and I can see what's going on, I can tell if you're lying. A lot of times you can tell if a person's lying or telling the truth, or if they're uneasy. We have these people who are experts now in body language, and there's all kinds of things about body language. And when I'm doing this, I'm actually doing something. I don't know what it is. But if you look a person in the eye, you don't need the body language. You can see what's going on. And it's fascinating. Kathy went up. There's a lady up north of us that actually does the retinal stuff. I don't understand this, but she can actually look in your eye, and through the spots and all the things and the retina and whatever else it is, she can actually tell you things that are going on in your body, both good and bad. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it awesome that evolution was so smart to cause something like that? Maybe evolution's, you know what it is. I don't even need to say it. The scripture says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And the Almighty Himself, in creating our bodies, said, I'm going to put something there. I'm going to put two of them there so that somebody can look and see what's in a person, both physically and spiritually. Emotionally, you can see what's in a person through looking in their eyes. And this is what the scripture is talking about here, is a good eye. Because if your eye is looking at the right things, it's what you look at, okay? Where you're looking. And if your eye is focused on the good, on going toward God, on investing in what He would invest into people, into seeking His kingdom, with our finances, our resources. It says you shall love Adonai your Elohim with your heart, your soul, and it says resources. That's what it says. Okay, you can't get away from this thing. You can make excuses, but they're just peanut butter. In the end, you have to go back a few weeks to understand what I'm talking about if you miss some. So it's talking about where we're looking and what we're looking at and where we're driving. You're going to go where your eye goes. A friend of mine I've never been much for motorcycles because as a kid I was running this, I was on a little Honda 70, I think it was. It was one of those little tiny things. And I wrecked it in a driveway, and I thought, I don't need to do that anymore. So, but you can do this with your car too, not just a motorcycle. You see something in the road, say there's a dead animal in the road in front of you. If you stare at that, you know what you're going to do? You're going to run straight over it. I'm told if you're on a motorcycle, you're going straight over it with, two tires, and you're going to maybe go to the side. A car, you're going to hit it. What you stare at is where you're going to go. You got to look to the side. To miss something, you got to look to the side. And so where you're staring at, spiritually, emotionally, physically, where you're staring with your eye is where you're going to go with the rest of you. Your body, your resources, your energy, everything is going to go where your eyes are staring. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Now we know that the enemy comes as an angel of light. And so there are people out there that the light that they have within them is an evil light. It's actually a light that comes from darkness, which seems like kind of an oxymoron, but it's a scriptural oxymoron. There's things that we do that can be good. We can still today very easily eat and act and react and live our life by the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, thinking that the light that is in us is the true light but yet it's not His light. We need to be living our life, allowing the light of the Torah. Psalm 119, your Torah is light, a light into my path, right? And where that light goes is where our eye goes, and where our eye goes is where we go. All ties together. So we need to allow His Torah to examine us. And there are ways that we do that. Go back to your checkbook. Allow the Torah to examine your checkbook. Allow the Torah to examine your, I would say day timer, but we don't use those anymore. Allow the Torah to examine your calendar on your computer. Allow the Torah to examine the pictures that are on your computer. Allow the Torah to examine the music, the videos. Let's go on from there, and I'll get to that. If that light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. For you will either hate the first and love the second, or scorn the second and be loyal to the first. You cannot be a slave to both God and money. This is what he said, okay? I'm just expounding on it some today. These verses, to me, are saying this: don't kid yourself. If your life is all wrapped up in material wealth, if your life is all wrapped up and you can have it wrapped up in material wealth and be pretty well broke, by the way. It's not that you have a pile of money. It's kind of like this. I've never met somebody that could live on 90%, at least in their mind at first. Oh no, I make $10 a week and you want me to give $1? No, I don't want you to give $1. God does. If you will begin this in your children with their allowance. I hate to say it. Some of you have heard me say this, and my daughter cringes when I say this. You gotta remember where I was when we first came to Messiah. We were into all the pagan stuff, and we were serving it, and we were trying to do it with the right heart, but it was still pagan stuff. And I taught Crystal, I taught her tithing with Halloween candy. It still sounds crazy to me. I would make her, she'd come home, and I'd make her give me 10% of her Halloween candy. I know, I'm a terrible father. She's scarred for life still. Excuse me. But we've taught our children to tithe. Now, whether they do or not, that's up to them. I taught them to tithe. I can tell you, if you will teach your child from a very young age that when you get $10, you're to give $1. If you do that, when they're making 1,000, the 100 will be easy. When they're making 10,000, the 1,000 will be easy. Why? Because they're taught, they've been given the correct teaching to do the right thing. But if that's something that you weren't taught, or you just have closed your mind to it, then that $20 that you're giving on a monthly basis out of your whole income is, I just can't believe I'm giving that much money. And there's all kinds of things that we deal with to make excuses. But where your investments are, that's where your heart is also. And don't kid yourself. That's what the scripture is, I believe the scripture is saying here. Don't kid yourself. You can't serve both. Your heart is either toward one or the other. And yes, maybe there's a time, there's a little bit of time here that you can kind of ride the fence, You ever watched America's Funniest Home Videos? What happens to people that walk the fence? Yeah, I know. They get their video on America's Funniest Home Videos. And people laugh at them because they're stupid. Why? Because they fell off the fence. Now, sometimes you'll fall to the left. Sometimes, they even have this thing on, which way is the person going to fall. And sometimes the person falls left. Sometimes the person falls to the right. Sometimes, and these are the funny ones, they fall right down the center of it. Ouch. Can't believe my wife will say, there's some things you just shouldn't say. It's one of those mornings. I just feel great today. So, you never know what's going to come out. If you're walking that fence today and you're doing okay walking that fence line, things are kind of easy. The gold and silver is going up and it's going down a little and it's going up a little, and the stock market's going up and then down and up and down, and your 401k, well, today you lost something and tomorrow you gained something, and it's okay. And I know that the price of a loaf of bread is doubled in the last year or something, but it's okay, and I'm still doing all right. But what about the day that it's a day's wages for that loaf of bread? Which way are you going to fall? You're going to fall off into what's the truth that you've actually been serving yourself through the years? You've been serving, as the scripture says, mammon, basically the world system, and yourself. Or are you going to fall to the right, over to the scriptures of David that says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or his seed begging for bread? Which way are you going to fall? Are you willing to take that chance today that you'll fall the right way? More important, maybe, are you willing to take that chance that your children are going to fall the right way? It's a good thing for the kids to see mom and dad giving. It instills in them. It's a good thing for the kids to see mom and dad investing in people. And you know something? You got to go out of your way to do it. You got to inconvenience yourself to do it. You got to set yourself up to be hurt to invest in people. But you're always looking for that person that changes, that draws closer to the image of the Messiah, because you invested in their lives. Someone asked me years ago, and I'll close with this, and next week we're going to get into don't worry about your life, and those are scripture. You might want to spend some time with those, because we're going to, I don't know if we'll get through this in 2 weeks or not. It may be an extra week before we get through all those scriptures through the rest of, because these are so important for us today, I believe, because there's so much misteaching on this. At least in my humble opinion, there's a lot of misteaching. What was I talking about? I have no earthly clue. Now I'd have to go back. Oh yeah, I know what it is. About to have to go back and rewind it just to watch me again, which I cannot do. Years ago, I was pastoring a church, and someone asked me. I pastored full time. I did not believe that you could do something part time. I've never been a part time kind of person. I've got to throw myself into something absolutely, totally, and completely. And somebody asked me. They said, "What motivates you? What drives you?" And I thought, well, it can't be the money, because I wasn't, back then I really wasn't making even enough to pay the rent. But God was good. He has always, and I believe will always take care of us. But I said, well, it wasn't that. It sure wasn't the fame, because we had like one of the smallest churches in the county. We were the black sheep. It wasn't the wonderful headlines, because we didn't have any. So I thought about it for a while, and I said, let me get back with you. And a few weeks later, I had a relative that at that time he was looking at he had some things to say, and I said, I'm going to be out of town, and I'd like you to speak for me this Sunday morning. Wow, this Sunday morning. It's not a Wednesday night, it's a Sunday morning. It's either Sunday morning or Sunday night. And I saw such a change in his life back then when he did that. And it finally dawned on me. The reason I do what I do is to see people's lives change. That's what it's all about. To see somebody that wasn't walking with God and they start to walk with Him. There's nothing greater than you can invest in life than people. I've seen a lot of people that you invest in and they take advantage of it and just go their own way and leave you in the dust, and who cares? It's all right. They're going to have to stand before the Almighty on that one. And I'll have to stand before Him too. And maybe my judgment will be, why'd you give up so quick? Don't know. So these scriptures, invest in the right things. And don't kid yourself. Open that checkbook. Open that calendar. Look at what's on your computer, in your video cabinet, all of these different places. And make an honest assessment. Where is your heart? You can't serve two masters. You may be getting away with it a little bit now. You're not going to in the future. You're just not going to. So, with that, I'm going to, for the person that emailed me, I'll be talking more about this next week as we get into these scriptures about, I tell you, don't worry about your life. And so I'm going to try to bring in hopefully a very balanced approach on these scriptures. So with that, Shavua Tov, have a wonderful, blessed, and prosperous week. And I pray that these words just really get through to not only to your life, but to mine also, to continue to reevaluate, where are we laying our treasures up? Where moth and rust and burglars take it away? Or are we laying our treasures up in a heavenly realm where nothing can take that away? See you next week. God bless.
Hello, this is Mark.
Oh, hello, Marky. It's Grandma calling. How are you today?
Hi, Grandma. I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm just fine, too. There's a story in that, but I'm going to save that for another day. Because today, I'm on a mission.
Oh, you're on a mission? What kind of mission? Do you need any help?
Well, Marky, that's why I'm calling you. To ask you to help me. My mission just won't take long, but I just need to have you explain something to me in greater detail.
Okay, Grandma. What do you need to explain?
Well, remember last year was my first year celebrating Hanukkah, and I thought you were talking about these Star Wars movie people, Hans, Luke, and Leia.
Yeah, I remember.
Their names just sound so much like the Hanukkah from the Hanukkah menorah,
Yeah.
Well, now that I have experienced one Hanukkah, I would like to know more about this celebration.
Oh, good. All right.
It's not just a Jewish festival to celebrate lights, is it?
No, you've got it right, Grandma. Hanukkah may be known as the Festival of Lights, but it's also known as the Feast of Dedication. About a couple of hundred years before Yeshua was on earth, the Maccabean revolt brought down the Greeks and their hold on Jerusalem. and it ended in the ban against worshiping God. One of the first events was to light the menorah in the temple area in preparation of rededication of the altar. That's why this holiday has interchangeable names like the Feast of Lights and Hanukkah, which is Hebrew for dedication.
Oh, yes, Marky, I agree with what you're saying. But there is so much more to this festival than even what our Jewish brethren recognize, isn't there?
Yeah, well, that's actually quite the understatement. This festival, like all the festivals, points to Yeshua. In John chapters 8 and 9, Yeshua is quoted saying that he is the light of the world. The function of the menorah in the temple is the same thing. We know that the temple is a miniature representation of all that God has created, like the universe and the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
The menorah was the central light within the temple. It was being a light to the world.
Oh, my, Marky. That is profound.
Yeah, profound. That's words they use for me all the time. Of course, there's more to it, Grandma. Yeshua is referred to as the branch of David in Jeremiah 23 and 33, I think. Both the menorah and the Hanukkah have branches on which the lights set. The top of that picture analogy, Yeshua is also referred to as the suffering servant who took the sins of the world upon himself so that we could have access to the light of the world. We refer to this as the way of salvation. That is displayed in the shamash, or the servant candle, the candle that's right in the middle. But it's not only access to the light, it's also to help us become lights also, just as when the servant candle lights the other candles.
Oh, Marky, I have just had my eyes opened a whole lot more to this amazing time of celebration. I'm glad to be observing this instead of Christmas. And from what you've been telling me, Hanukkah is not something we do to replace Christmas. It's something far more special. Oh, right. Thank you, Marky, for helping me out with this mission of mine.
Well, as always, you're welcome, Grandma. Call me anytime you're on a mission or just want to talk.
Oh, I will, Marky. I have you on speed dial now, So I'm looking forward to hearing more about Hanukkah on Little Lammy Radio, too. I have the radio on instead of my TV now.
All right, good.
And I'm making sure my friends are tuning in. This is such a blessing.
Awesome. That's great, Grandma. Keep telling more people about Little Lammy Radio, okay?
I will.
I really do appreciate all your help. Hey, Grandma, I need to go. I have a meeting with a new producer to show her the ropes on how to run the radio controls. Can we talk later?
Oh, yes, sure, Marky, anytime. You have a wonderful day and a good meeting, okay? Bye-bye. I love you.
Love you too, Grandma. Bye-bye.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.